What comes to mind when you think about branding? We usually think about logos, colors, and marketing. But branding is so much more than that. It's about how your church is perceived, both by those who walk through the doors and even by those who may never step foot inside. Branding is about creating an identity, a message that clearly tells people who you are, what you stand for, and how you serve your community. One of the most powerful ways that communicate that message is through the design of your facility. Think about the first impression someone gets when they walk into your church. How do the entrances, lobbies, and worship spaces reflect the heart of your ministry? The design of your church communicates more than just style. It communicates who you are as a community, what you value, and how you serve others. The physical design of your church speaks volumes. It can convey whether your church is welcoming, inclusive, or focused on worship. It can show that your church values connection through open spaces for fellowship, or values community by providing areas for groups and family activities. These design elements serve as nonverbal cues communicating your mission, values, and priorities to guests, members, and the broader community. Every space in your church should be intentionally designed to reflect the values you hold dear. If your church is focused on outreach, public-facing areas like the entrance or lobby should be inviting and accessible. If family ministry is a priority, think about creating kid-friendly spaces that encourage connection and growth for children and families. And if worship is central to your ministry, the design of your sanctuary and worship spaces should foster engagement and reverence. Ultimately, the design of your facility should align with your church's mission. To truly support the ministry, it must be a tool that makes it easier for people to connect with God and each other. A well-designed church isn't just about aesthetics. It's about creating spaces that reflect the values, vision, and mission of your church.
What story does the church want to tell? And just being super clear on that, and then making sure that everything you do tells that story. We know the biblical principle. I think it's 1 Samuel that you see that Bible says that man looks on the outside, but God looks at the heart. And oftentimes we go to the part where, hey, God looks at the heart. So it's what the heart is what matters. But oftentimes we're thinking about, for us, reaching visitors, the other part of that principle is just equally as true, is that people look on the outside. Like, that is where people start. I think a compelling brand is being able to take what God has put in our hearts and be able to share that to our communities so that we're telling a compelling story. And then everything that we do, from facilities to, yes, the logo, to the environments that we create, to our sermon series, to our messaging, communications, marketing, website, all of that shares one compelling story that when people see it, they know, man, something powerful, something unique, something compelling is going on there. And I think it just speaks to, God, who created everything, is trying to redeem, humankind back to him. And that is the most compelling story. And another way to say it, it's the most compelling opportunity to brand that we have. And so I always go back to that principle of just telling a compelling story and just making sure that everything that we do aligns with that story that we're trying to tell. I think one of the most important things when we talk about telling a compelling story, especially in our culture, is consistency, longevity, repetition. People need to hear something 7 to 12 times, if you look at, depending on the study that you look at, before they truly understand what you're trying to communicate to them. And so every opportunity that you get to communicate something, so if you're doing something special for Christmas or Easter, or you're doing a special sermon series and you have guests, I hope that message circles back around to that story, to your brand. And so when people interact with your church, they're starting to understand that story that you're trying to tell them. So definitely, like, consistency over time is a way that you tell a powerful story. And I think that far too often, if a church is trying to change that story, people are just getting it by the time you change it. And I think you got to think through decades. What can you can do over decades can be powerful. So if you're there for the long haul and you're consistent and you show up and everything pulls back to that same story, man, that can be powerful. You can reach and connect with a ton of people. But if you're always changing that and you're inconsistent, and this series is way different than this, and what you say is important is way different than what looks important, then it's just an inconsistent story that's not very compelling. And you'll always find that people don't tend to stick, So pastors oftentimes will maybe be frustrated, like, hey, we get visitors, but they don't seem to stick around. They don't connect. And it might be because you're not really telling a consistent story that they want to connect with.
Your church's physical space is a reflection of your mission. The design of your church building isn't just about aesthetics. It's about creating an environment that supports your ministry and communicates your values. When you approach the design of your facility with intention, you're not just making it functional. You're building a space that truly reflects who you are and what you stand for.